Hey everybody, this is Theokinawakid'S here, and today I'm gonna make a quick review of basically Netflix's new animated musical called, wait for it, Arlo the Alligator Boy. That basically is the kind of sequel to my other video, my fan fiction idea, but this time I'm gonna talk about the actual movie itself. So, basically, Arlo the Alligator Boy, like I said in that video briefly, is about Arlo Beauregard. Arlo Beauregard he was born an abnormality. He was born into more or less, he was born in New York City, but more or less his father, kind of sort of seemingly disgusted by his appearance, more or less like put him in the cradle and more or less abandoned him in the New York sewer system, where he drifted like halfway down the country to more or less the swamps of Louisiana, where he basically meets up or basically gets adopted with a kindly old hermit woman in the swamp named Edme, who more or less adopts him as his own kid and basically raised him for about 15 years until literally he came of age, where he basically finally gets the news that he was adopted and his father lives in New York. So, with that being said, he's this fun, energetic kid. He's basically wants to see the bigger picture, wants to see the bigger world out there. But more or less, he's been living in the swamp his whole life, and most of the animals are kind of like indifferent to him. It's like, man, look at this freak. But like, basically, he has a very optimistic point of view, a very wide-eyed idealist, if you will, and he's just a more or less a country bumpkin trying to explore the outside world, and more or less he basically does. Where he comes of age, turned 15, and basically he finally gets the news about his father, and he goes out to the greater world. Turns out a lot of people are like either indifferent or downright hated him, or if you like some villains, like the two hillbillies who were trying to chase after him, trying to turn him into a music park attraction, like a sideshow freak show, if you will. And they even have their own freak show they keep on a leash and, kind of like acting as their muscle called the Beast. So basically, Arlo's on the run. He's basically being chased by the two hillbillies, and more or less, he meets the semi-giant Birdie. Birdie is, a older teenage girl and a giant who more or less saves Arlo from the hillbillies. And basically, they became fast friends while on the run together and going up to New York to see Arlo's dad. While traveling up the East Coast, they basically meet up other, freaks like, Tiny Tony, or rather Teeny Tiny Tony, um, for Alicia, Alia, and basically, they're also more or less unique individuals with weird physiologies that basically trying to survive by traveling around the country and basically scamming people out of their money. And while they meet up at a barn full of other hillbillies, basically trying to actually, a little bit of wrestling or ring over there, like backwater wrestling and stuff. Basically, they kind of fell into this whole situation and they meet up each other and on the run together. And basically, Teeny Tiny Tony's like, hey, I'll take you to New York if you basically help us break out of a friend of ours, Marcellus, the fish man. So Marcellus the fish man has been basically locked up in the aquarium of the Carolinas because, well, he's a literal fish with legs and a Speedo, so of course he'll be the biggest attraction there. So with that being said, that's the whole thing where they more or less break out Marcellus, and basically, yeah, Marcellus is a pretty kind of cool guy. The problem is, the guy's been through shit. Like, more or less akin to a actual prisoner. Like an actual convict. Like, he basically has PTSD of his time at the aquarium, where he absolutely hates kids. He absolutely hates kids with a fiery passion because all the kids that used to mocked and picked on him in the aquarium day in, day out. So he has a little bit of PTSD, and he's not the most approachable guy. It's very similar to like people with basically, like I said, newly released convicts or soldiers. So yeah, he's been through some shit. So yeah, not the most approachable guy, but he's still well-meaning enough. So with that being said, the whole gang of misfits basically go to New York City finally after basically Arlo kind of explains his situation and his dad being there, and basically he wants to find where he really belongs. And so they finally go to New York, where basically there is a problem with this series, rather movie. This movie has a bit of a world building problem where, okay, you want to get across that these are outcasts from society, misfits, freaks, but yeah, when they get to New York, they're kind of like, some of them are a little bit weirded out by them, but like most of the time, New York is just crazy enough array that they kind of like blend in, which is actually kind of funny. So yeah, New York City, they're in New York. Arlo's trying to find his dad, no luck, but they have fun in New York City. They love the glitz and glamour of the Big Apple. They love the fact that, they could just kind of blend in without being judged or get a twice overlook and, that sort of thing. I mean, there's a few, but you get the deal. So with them finding, like, Arlo's, no such luck finding Arlo's dad, they actually saw him on the news where he turns out he's a billionaire. He's a billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, and entrepreneur who's actually trying to rebuild tear down and rebuild the old boardwalk in New York, seaside by the seashore, and build up that whole neighborhood into like a new high-rise upstart neighborhood. All that shit, all that good stuff. In any case, so with that being said, Arlo finds his dad. They have the last name. It's the same name from his little birth tag. He got him from the hospital. So literally, they found him. Turns out, Ansel Beauregard, Arlo's dad, is a little bit ashamed that his son is a literal gator boy, and he's kind of like shunned him out of his life. It's like, hey, my son is dead, and you're not my son because I would never have a freak like you. I mean, he's a lot more nicer than that. He's a lot more, you could tell it's tearing up a side of him saying all this. I mean, he's really, like, he has some deep sort of issues working out with himself and his own legacy and stuff, which I'm going to go on to a little bit in the actual end of this review. But needless to say, there's more to Ansel Beauregard than just a absentee, neglectful father. So with that being said, while basically, like, one heartbreak moment after another and a massively depressing, if not amazingly beautiful song in the swamps, or at the sewers. Basically, like, Arlo's like, hey, my dad just, like, didn't want me. My dad didn't want me, and I don't know what to do. So, basically, his friends kind of picked him up. It was like, hey, you're the nicest guy I ever met. You're the nicest guy any of us has ever met, and we wouldn't really be here if it weren't for you. So, hey, cheer up, man. So, literally, they kind of give him a massive pep talk, and basically, it was like, you know what, you're right. Who cares? Hey, if my dad wanted to save me, that's cool. If he doesn't, that's cool too, because I got you guys as friends, and you're my family now. So, yeah, that's the whole thing. So, and the way to show that is by telling that to his face at the gala. The real life event gala that happens in New York every other year. Like real life event. Yeah. Yeah, that's how to deal with that. But yeah, basically they went to the real life event gala. I know, it's really much like an excuse for rich guys to act weird and stuff. Which is funny because they're already freaks, so they can literally just blend in right there too. So like, it's like, wow, nobody bats an eye either. Wow, it's almost like the world building is kind of on the short side. But in any case, basically, the whole other thing is that, like, Arlo's basically confronting his dad about more or less everything, like abandoning him in the sewers and basically, all that stuff. As it turns out, like, yes, he does finally admit that Arlo's his son, but also another thing. Basically, when the two, hillbillies show up, yeah, they follow them all the way to New York just so they can catch this gator boy. They more or less capture Arlo using their makeshift tools and the beast to more or less capture him. And in a moment of crisis, Ansel kind of had the option to save him, but didn't. Not wanting to expose his legacy of being dirt poor and, from the slums, more or less, being exposed, and more or less his secret more or less goes away with Arlo as they more or less drag Arlo away to get captured. Which basically, like, it's like, holy crap, what have I done? So, in the moment of character moment, a beautiful character moment with him, Ansel, Arlo's dad, reveals himself as, well, a freak too. He's a harpy guy. He's a literal bird man. As it turns out, while growing up in the slums of New York City, mainly seaside by the seashore, hey, I got that one right. So, growing up in the slums, more or less, he was always picked on because of his seagull-like wings and feet, and more or less, being found by as a freak. So he literally made himself up as a self-made millionaire by literally rising from the corporate ladder and social ladder, disguising his abnormalities from the world, and basically became more or less a self-made man from the ground up. Literally. A literal phoenix rising from the ashes. You probably get that if you see this, his whole song number. In any case, so basically, he was ashamed when Arlo was born that his existence as a freak will get exposed to the public. So he kind of abandons him. So, and he regrets it ever since. Which he's like, yeah, I get where he's coming from. He's not outright malicious. He's never come across as outright malicious or that evil. In fact, he's not even evil at all. He's just very much horrendously flawed, but he's still a person. He's still a person who recognizes he made a big mistake and wants to correct it. He wants to learn and grow from it, both as a person, but also as a father, and want to, more or less by the end of the movie, reconnect with Arlo on a parental level and want to be in Arlo's life. So with that being said, that's the whole thing. It says people learning the human experience and make each other better people. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Arlo the Alligator Boy is a very touching, coming of age, fish out of water story that's very beautiful, music wise. All the songs are amazing. All the actual animation is just amazing too. A lot of great talented people working on it. And not to mention, it's just like on top of everything else, it's basically a amazing movie that's turning out to be a good series because, as it turns out, Netflix is actually making this whole anime movie, into an actual series upcoming in the next couple months, if not a year. So we might get to see more of these characters as a series on Netflix. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So yeah, and that's more or less Arlo the Alligator Boy. I highly recommend checking this out. I don't usually rate things because I'm not that type of reviewer, but I give it a 5 out of 5. Great stuff. If I had to say anything and do me anything about any flaws this movie has, it come across as, okay, the best way to describe the flaws is that, like, it come across as the world building is amazing. Like, the world looks amazing, but, like, the logistics of the world, how it works, and how, more or less, majority of people look normal enough, but the main characters and some of the other characters turn out to be freaks. Like, physical freaks, like merman and, like, bird people and gator boys. The thing is, how does that actually work, and how does everything fit together wasn't really explained. It's only an 80-minute movie, so it doesn't really have time to explain all the logic behind why everything the way it is in this movie. But it's a highly amazing, just really happy, good, feel-good movie overall, so I highly recommend it. I know I keep saying that, but yeah, I really do. I just really like this movie. So, go check it out. It's on now on Netflix. It should be in the new movies section. Go check it out if you want to see for yourself or you're intrigued. Go for it. So, this has been Theokinawakid'S, and this is me signing out.